Yeah.
Manik, it is all yours now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Yashwant. Uh, Organizers, I think we already introduced themselves. So thank you, Vishal, Vikalp, Yashwant, for organizing this. Then that's me. Probably you might have seen that so many times, that photo. But yeah, I'm like I said, I am a technology architect at Avio Consulting. We are MuleSoft partners, so usually work around MuleSoft, right? I'm also MuleSoft ambassador for last few years. Then I have MCIA level 1 and MCD certificates just to make sure that I have the knowledge, right? Then I'm also a community contributor, and I do lead online meetup group, which is global, and then Wilmington meetup group, which is my local group here. I usually write my blogs around javastitch.com, and you can find me through that entry point, money.maker.me. That will lead you to all the things that I do. Getting into the agenda, what we are going to see today. We are going to see a brief introduction of EDI. What does that mean? What are different EDI formats? And then we'll get into how does MuleSoft and EDI look together? What options do we have? What connectors we have, and that kind of thing. Then we will focus more on the X12 format. We will see how does it look like, what are the different things within the X12, and then move on to the understanding of X12 connector, what does it do, what it doesn't do, and then at the end we will do an X12 demo to see X12 connector in work, as well as we'll learn around all the settings around X12 connector part there, and then we'll go into Q&A. Q&A is at the end, but if you have any question, feel free to stop me in there and ask while I'm on that particular thing, right? Okay. What is EDI? It is a pretty much definition, standard definition. It is the computer-to-computer exchange of business documents in a standard electronic format between business partners. Theoretical definition, right? And which makes it very simple. It is when in the olden days everything was a paper documents that used to go back and forth, and then we evolved and we get into all the electronic world. Everything goes over the wire now. Uh, so what exactly EDI is? So in olden days, what used to happen when I have to send an invoice or a purchase order from one place to another, the options were okay, prepare an paper invoice or the paper purchase order, send it via either the mail or courier or fax them, like somehow manually transfer that purchase order or invoice from one place to another place, right? That is how in the olden days it used to happen. Um, Now what happens is there is no not that 100%, but usually these transmissions now, the paper invoices, purchase order, or anything that is now going from one system to another system without any manual intervention. Manual intervention only when something goes wrong. Otherwise, the try is to not to require any manual intervention for all these B2B transactions, right? Like I was saying, it does eliminate the need for paper communication. So we save paper for sure. And then it minimizes human interactions. Not that every human interaction will lead to an error, but we know that wherever there is any human interaction, there is a chance of an error. So while we minimize human interaction through these type of transaction, we also decrease the error rates from our transactions, right? So that is like a briefly of what EDI is. And definitely the world is large. Not everybody can follow one single format, right? So are there like more than one format, or what type of formats we do have? So definitely we have more than one. The very first one is not by any order. So these are not ordered by certain thing. These are randomly ordered. So the first one I have here is an NCASC X12. X12 was developed by American Standards Committee. X12, they developed that one. They maintained that whole standard from the beginning until now. It is used in healthcare, insurance, transportation, and I believe also in the supply chain, finance, and all other industries, right? It is very predominantly used in North America, so you may not see X12 commonly used outside of North America, and that is the another reason why we are at least here focusing on X12 because that is most commonly you will face if you are working on any integration within North America and surrounding regions, right? That does not mean there won't be another. There are other, but this is predominant one. And on the right hand side, just one example of an X12 transaction, which is an 850 purchase order, which defines okay ST 850 and then bunch of other segments describing what in that purchase order is, what is actually included in that one. That's what it shows. So it shows like a one single line item from purchase order. We will learn more as we go into the details, right? The next one, EDI fact or un-EDI fact, it's a United Nations electronic data interchange for administration, commerce, and transport. As name suggests, it is UN recommended and predominantly used outside of North America on like Europe and all that side. If you are working there, you will see EDI fact more frequent than the X12 format. Similar to EDI X12, EDI fact also has different data in there. So this one here is a one example of, I think this is an ticket availability that I got currently from Wikipedia. So this example is from Wikipedia's that page where they have a flight system example and it's showing the flight ticket availability for a particular request. You can make that out by seeing JFK, MIA, which are nothing but the airport codes here, right? So that's how it looks in EDI fact. The next one is Tradacom. Tradacom is another RTI. It is developed by Article Number Association and which is now known as GS1 UK. Again, name suggests it's predominantly in UK, but more in the retail industry of UK. So if you get a chance to work for the retail industry in the UK, you will run into this standard on there. Again, on the right hand side, one example of a retail order, it's you can say new order. So it is a one new order going from one store to another store, which you can make it out from like some store, supplier, UK, east somewhere, depot. So you can see some words related to the actual physical stores in there, right? That is where the retail industry has in there. So that is Tradacom. Uh, those are the three, but there are more than that. For example, HIPAA. HIPAA is in the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act in US, predominantly in US. Those who have worked in the healthcare industry, HIPAA should be familiar to them. That is the format that defines how hospitals, all these health organizations need to ensure the private information of patient reports and how to secure all that data and how securely transfer that health related data from one organization to another organization or system. So it is very much for the healthcare industry. HL7 is also an health level 7 health related one, which also has some formats similar to HIPAA, and it is also used by like health industry in there. And then there are like many more small formats, industry specific, right? So this is by no means this is like an exhaustive list of EDI formats. There are more than that, but what the one that I mentioned here are the widely and commonly used. You will see all of these across the industries if you start working towards the more of a B2B space where two different businesses are working with each other. So you will see all these type of formats there, right? So those are the EDI formats. What happens when MuleSoft and EDI comes? together. Like Shiva was saying, 2014, there wasn't much EDI probably in the MuleSoft ecosystem, but we know MuleSoft ecosystem is continuously growing, and every month, every day, something new comes in. Every month, new connector comes in, new modules, new features. It keeps coming in, and around I think 2016, 17, or 18, in there was a lot of thing happened where X12 connector, EDI pack, the first versions of all of those, and including the partner manager version 1 started to come out, and that is where MuleSoft entered into EDI space. And now, if you go on any point exchange and search for the B2B there for connectors, you will see a lot of connectors for MuleSoft. So you have AS2, you have X12 connector, then you have FTPS. These FTPS, AS2, those are protocols, not the EDI format. So you have X12 EDI format, then HL7 Redacom, and EDI fact. Rosetta Net is another format that wasn't on the list, but that is also an EDI format that industries use, and HL7. So there is a bigger list of this one. I just took the one snapshot of it. If you go on any point exchange and just search for B2B, you will see all the connectors that are used within the B2B session, right? So how does X12 format look? Like I said, we will focus more on the X12 format. X12 format, how does it look? How to integrate with it, or how to process that data, read, write, and everything. Until now, anyone has any question before we jump into X12? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So what is X12? By definition from x12.org, the official site of X12, right? In 1979, the ANSI, American National Standards Institute, chartered the Accredited Standards Committee, which is ASC X12. What they do is they develop and maintain the standards that industry should follow when they do an electronic exchange of data from one organization to another organization, or one system to another system, right? So that all defines how that electronic data interchange, or EDI data, should be transferred from one system to another. That is what they define, and they maintain it. So just like any standards, X12 standard continuously evolves. It won beginning from 1979 and up to now. Definitely, a lot of change happened. Industry evolved, things changed, data changed, right? So how do they maintain it? If you have seen X12 data, or if you have heard about it, you will always see, oh, I received a 4010 850, I received a 3010 810 document in there. So what does that mean? So basically that 4010, 3010, all those, they are the version numbers for that particular release, in which 004 means version number, 01 release number, and 0 is sub release number. So you might interact with more than one version numbers within the same organization. So, for example, if you are an organization A and you are a very big, very large organization, and you have multiple departments within you, it is possible one department is using 4010 version and another one is using 5010 version for it. So you will find them all scattered across the industry, right? In some of the older systems, they may still be using 3010 version, because nothing has changed on their business side, or they may have not upgraded to it, right? So those are the versions for it. But those are the versions, and we know there are a lot of documents that can go between different organizations: purchase orders, invoices, delivery orders, payment receipts, delivery intentions, or even like tens of documents that can go between two organizations, like shipment notices, delivery notices, everything that you can think of, right from opening your website, opening Amazon and putting your order until that item comes to your home. Everything that happen between that process is usually represented by some type of document, and there will be a document type that can identify what it is, right? So how do you represent all these transactions using X12 format? What X12 does is it defines transaction sets, which means for purchase order, there will be one transaction set number. For invoice, there will be one, and you can think of them as an identifiers. And all those identifiers will represent the document type, right? So if we look at this example, 850 is nothing but a purchase order. So when I say I received an 850, 4010 850, that means I received a purchase order following 4010 version standards, right? 810 invoice and 370 delivery pickup order. Likewise, there are so many documents, and if you go on X12's site and look for the transaction sets, you can see all the transaction codes that they use and all different types of documents that they support, right? So you can figure out what document you have received and what does that mean, right? Uh, then MuleSoft X12 module. So what we saw there, how does X12 look like? And in the EDI plus MuleSoft connector list, we saw there is an X12 module, X12 connector. But what does it do? Why there is a connector? Obviously, everything in MuleSoft ecosystem is driven by connectors or modules, right? So MuleSoft X12 module, what it does is you can convert X12 messages to and from to data view compatible representations using list and map. What does that mean? So if you recall, or if I go back to the example of X12 here, on the right hand side, you see ST star 850 star 001, BG star star, all that thing. This is a plain text, right? So what X12 module does is it takes this plain text and it converts that into a Java based object model, so that you can feed that Java based object model to DataView, and then you can iterate over it, or basically you can process and map it, right? So that makes it easy. Instead of trying to read through this text line, try to parse them and put all the rules. And it's not, I'll tell you, it's not just parsing of the data. It's not like, okay, I will start reading from this line, I will split it by star, then I will split it by again star, split by tilt, and then try to make it. It's not, I mean, it's not that simple, even if it might look like, because apart from the structure, the separators, there are rules in the X12 format which defines how the data should be. For example, if n1 if n1 is present, then n3 should be there. If n1 and n2 is present, the two segments are present, probably n3 shouldn't be there. That is not the exact rule, but I am just giving an idea of the syntactical validations as well as the rules that it applies. The another rule could be at the, like you see here, SE10 001. So 10 actually means how many segments are in this transaction, and if that doesn't match with the actual number of segments that you see here, the validation needs to fail. So all those validation rules and conversion of plain text into DataView compatible format and vice versa. That is what X12 module primarily does, right? So I'll go back to the X12 module. So first, yeah, It lets you convert from that X12 plain text to the Java model, which is easy to work with the data weave thing. And we will see that model when we go on to the demo site, right? We will see all these files and all these objects. How do they look like? Like I was saying, it supports validating message for X12 syntax as well as rules, meaning if N1 is there, N2 shouldn't be there, or the number of segments, number of documents, the groups and everything. All those rules, it supports validating that. It does support multiple versions of X12, all the things 3010, 3020, 50, and there are some documents from the HIPAA standards which are also supported by this X12 connector. So if you go like 5010 and onwards, you will find some HIPAA related documents supported by X12 connector. It does require little different setting because HIPAA has some different rules and regulations. So connector has like two different settings for that one. I might show that during the demo just to see where it goes, right? The other part is optionally it can generate functional acknowledgement 997 or 999 as per external standard. So what does that mean? That those two document sets, functional acknowledgements, those are like versus acknowledgement. When I receive a purchase order, it is a document that goes back, gets sent back to the sender saying, okay, we received an 850 from you. We ran the X12 standard rules on it and everything worked out. It is valid, it is invalid, or whatever happens, basically the result of this validation that runs, that connector runs. The output of that validation is included into 997 or 999 and sent back to the customer, to the another partner. So if somebody sent me a purchase order and if I validated that and if I find, oh, it is missing a purchase order line item segment, and that is a mandatory segment. So 997 might include that we received 850, but its status is rejected, and the rejection reason is you are missing whatever is missing, and that document gets sent back to the partner, and then they can whatever they can process and see, okay, it got rejected, so either resend or take some action, right? So those are the acknowledgements that goes back and forth. Metadata propagation with data sense. As we work with data weave, having a data sense usually is very helpful so that you can create your transformation scripts, because you will know the data type or the format, the object structure required by the connector or any component that is next to the data view, right? Or the before data view. So if you drop an X12 connector next to data view or before data view on the in the data view, so that object structure, you will see the structure that X12 is requiring, and it will help you to map your input or output data in the X12 structure, right? So it is very helpful when as you work on the data view transformations for it. This is right out of the O1 MuleSoft X12 module latest. X12 module 2.6, the connector 2.6, it literally got released day before yesterday. And I saw that today. What is the good new thing in there is a new operation, something called as a batch write, right? So think of it this way. I am a sender and you are a receiver. I am sending you invoices. You sent me 10 purchase orders. Now I have to send you 10 invoices to you. These may not be time sensitive documents. So sending them one by one may not be necessary, right? Because it does have a network cost and lot of cost tied to every transmission. I may want to combine all those 10 invoices into a single single interchange and then send it to you so that I can reduce my number of transmissions with you, plus we both save on the network cost, whatever are the benefits, right? So this new operation, what it allows you to do is it allows you to pick multiple X12 documents and combine them into a single X12 valid X12 document, and then you can send that document to your partner. This is more useful in terms of like WAN networks, value-added networks, where small businesses, they don't have their own infrastructure to send documents. So they might use like a third-party services to deliver their documents, and usually those third-party services charge by number of documents that are going back and forth. So reducing the number of transmissions may help to reduce the cost and all that. So there are definitely some benefits around this new operation in there, right? We will try to see that one. Literally, I saw it today afternoon and I was playing with it to get it working. I have it up to one part where you can see at least how it goes. Whether it will work or not, we will leave that to the demo gods if it works or not, right? Okay, so this guy is telling me I spoke too much, right? So that was all theory. Any question or anything um, theoretical that anybody want to know before we jump into the studio part?
Manik, I have a question.
Sure.
So this combining the documents, right? So it can be, different types of documents. For example, it can be 810, 850, and other
Yeah.
types, and then we can combine them one and send it as a one transaction.
Yes, that is what my understanding is. Like I said, it literally came. It's still hot out of the oven, but yeah, that's what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way it works is, you continue to generate your single individual X12 documents. The only thing is, instead of sending that individual document, X12 converted document, which is a plain text, right? Which is a plain text
Mm-hmm.
X12 document, you just store them somewhere, and whenever you want to, when it's time to send that whole thing together, you pick up all those 10-20 plain text file, you feed that to this batch operation. It will combine all those X12 transaction sets into one. The only condition there is they all need to be a valid X12 documents. And the fact that you will run every transaction through X12 write first to create individual one, those will be the valid transaction sets. So it doesn't matter what type of transaction sets you have in there.
So at the third party end, it has to be again, segregated in the individual documents. So
That, yeah, good, sorry.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that facility should be there, right? That understanding should be there with the third party.
Yeah, that should be there. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, definitely, it all has to be on mutually agreed thing. But the output of batch write is a valid, regular, normal X12 interchange, right? So if you give that X12 interchange, meaning that is a valid X12 document as per X12 standards. So any system following X12 standard by default should be able to parse that document and read the document. So there is no any custom, or there is no any, it's not like I'm getting two different documents and zipping them together and sending. No, I am getting those two documents and creating a single document from them and sending it out, which is a valid from X12 standard point of view.
Okay,
So
thank you.
on the other side, if whatever the X12 compatible system they are using, that X12 compatible system should be able to parse it and read that document on their side.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
Hey, is this
Mhm.
licensed version or is it available for general purpose?
No, you mean the X12 module, right?
Yes.
X12 module is, I believe it's a premium connector which you need to buy separately. It's not part of the standard or the select connectors that we get. Yeah, right.
Got it.
Because I mean, think about it. Not everyone were using Mule, not probably using X12, right? That is a very specific use case that only few users may have. So
Correct.
it's like an a la carte option there.
Yeah, so we had the licensing issue in the past, so probably I thought they might have changed the to the regular regular version instead of a premium version.
As far as I know, it is still a premium connector, but I mean licensing part, the MuleSoft rep should be the best one to help you with the licensing. But as far as I know, it's still a premium connector which needs to be acquired separately. The entitlements.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anything? No. No.
Is it required? Partner management is required, or for X12?
You mean partner manager?
Yeah, partner manager in any part.
So X12 module, you can use it by its own as an individual connector, just like any other connector, and build your own integration through it. You don't require partner manager if your use case is just to use X12 for one of the document and do the do the transformations and take care of everything manually. Partner manager, you can think of that as an higher product which combines more than X12, just the bare X12. Bare X12 is just a transformation from X12 format to other formats, right? Versus partner manager is a fully baked product which gives you more features than just transformation. For example, the partner management or transmission management or transmission, seeing transmissions, retry, and I mean, like it's a fully EDI product, you can say. And that is to your exact question. If you just need to use X12 as a standalone connector in your integration, you don't require partner manager. Obviously, there are pros and cons on both sides. Partner manager is another larger product than X12, and X12 is just for the X12 specification, right? That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question? No? Okay. So, okay, let's go into the demo. Where is my studio? I think to start it. Yeah. Let me pull this thing. Okay. So I have a simple application, right? Here for X12 demo. These are simple flows because we are going to focus on the X12 part more, X12 connector more, not how you can what whole the business use case that you can build. Once you understand this, you can build any business use case from it, right? So X12 connector, X12 EDI, it has three operations: read, write, and this new guy that just appeared, write batch, right? From configuration point of view, once you have your X12 connector in your project, you will have all these configurations in here. So generally, you will have default as X12, and this is where I was referring to. If you are using any HIPAA specific documentation, it has a different set of validations. So you will choose one of these two things, but we'll see today for the X12 part. So this is the X12 one. Schema definition, this is something you should definitely understand and know. The part where we were talking about the versions and schemas. One option is to don't specify any schema definition. In that case, the X12 configuration will support and will be able to parse and write every schema that you send it to it. Or the other option is, if your use case or the integration that you are building is only for purchase order, you can limit that by defining a schema here like X12. And if you are working on 004010, 810.ESL. What does ESL means? ESL is an EDI schema language that basically defines the structure of X12 document. And how do I know this X12 4010 810 is the schema? What you can do is, once you have the connector added to your project, you will see X12 in here. And if you look at the artifact that it is pulling, one of the artifact is X12 schemas. So just expand that, and here are all your schemas. So you can easily find them and use whichever one you want. So I was using X12, 4010, and 810. So all these numbers that are here, 100, 101, 104, they all represent a certain type of document. If you open any one, it will have the name for it. So 190, 4010 190 is a student enrollment verification. That is the name of the document, right? And then subsequent, this is what the EDI schema language. It is basically like an XSD or any other schema language that you know. It is similar to that. It defines how that structure looks like, that particular document looks like, right? If you remember that example ST where we saw in purchase order, that should also be somewhere here, 850. So 850, this is the purchase order. So it defines what are the different header elements that it should contain. So if you see ST is a required and BEG is mandatory. Rest everything usage is optional, right? And when I mentioned that there are certain rules, so like this one, so it is optional, but at max you can only have 3. If you have this, you can have more than one, like that type of rules in there. Some also have the length restrictions on certain items. So all these, so this is a bigger whole standard that you can possibly don't want to go through and read because it's too much, right? But that is what that is where you can find schemas if you want to restrict by schemas. And why you want to do that? I mean, it could be an use case that you have that application should only process 850, and it should not process anything else. If you put none and say okay, and then you are expecting 810 to come in, and somebody by mistake sent you 850, the X12 connector is still gonna read it and continue if you don't specify. But if you are specifically only putting an 850 here and somebody sends you an 850, the X12's read operation is gonna fail, saying unsupported schema document, unsupported transaction set, right, something like that error message. So basically you get a control of rejecting unsupported transaction sets. So that's why schema definitions are there. Then other than that, identities are the so think of this as an partner identifier. So if I am saying I am Manik, I must have something around with me, whatever the identifier I have. So that is my identifier. When I send document, I send that as a money, and when I'm sending it to you whatever identifier you are having between the industry. So those are not really unique universally because there are not many systems which can guarantee that uniqueness. So these are only like a mutually agreed between your trading partner and you, that okay, you keep your name as receiver ISA, I will keep my name as sender ISA, and those two are unique between us. And if I am working with one more partner, it will be my responsibility to make sure that partner doesn't have receiver ISA because I am already working with this partner in. So it is all the mutually agreed identifiers between the trading partners, right? There are certain identifiers which may be unique universally, because sometimes people do use phone number or the business organization identifier, the tax identifier, that kind of identifiers. It is possible to use all those, and if you use those, they by default becomes unique, right? So that helps you to identify your partners. Now, validation point of view, parsers, there are a lot of all those validation rules and syntax rules that I was referring to. You can configure them here, right? How how you should read the document when connector receives it, what type of things it needs to validate. For example, enforce length limits. One of the field in BEG was having 256 character length, right? So if somebody sends a 257, do you want to reject it or you want to let it pass, right? So you can configure all that thing here, and there are more validations that you can look for in look for these things. Something to more focus on here are these three pairs. Control numbers. In terms of X12, there are control numbers which are basically identifiers for your every document, and you can configure. If I receive a duplicate, if someone sends me a purchase order with order number 1, and next time they again send me a different purchase order with purchase order number 1, what should happen? Should X12 connector reject that, or it should let it pass? So it is false in here, you can make it to true, and then it will start enforcing those identifiers, right? Same way, there are a group control numbers and individual transaction numbers. We will look at these when we see the EDI file, a sample of EDI file. And there are other rules. You can explore those. So this parser thing is used by the read operation. And for the write operation, all these parameters are used. Obviously, we have to now convert Java object into that plain text. So we have to configure all the separators and all that thing in here. And control numbers. Like I was saying, when someone sent me a purchase order, they will put a purchase order number in there or the document number. Same way, when X12 connector is generating a document, it has to generate those control numbers or the identifiers. So you can configure the initial control number or initial interchange number that it should start with. And then it will, for the first document, it will use 1, the next document 2, 3, like that. It will keep incrementing that thing, right? Other than that, here, this is the tab that I did not explore yet, but it looks pretty similar to the right. And this is the new operation tab that came in, right, in here. So we will see if we can get that thing to work. But that is the X12 connector setting on very high level, the important parts. Did that help, or hopefully that helped?
Manik, earlier you said
Yeah.
for the batch write the new, right? You said you can send any type of interchange in there, any type of
Yes.
document. But looks
Yes.
like I think we can send only the same type of documents. Only 850 we can send in this whole batch, right?
Where does it? I didn't.
Because this is you're defining what schema you're gonna use it there, right?
No, that's for my write operation. The one that I was getting here was for my write operation. So if I am working with, or my application is working with 850 and 810 both, then I will have to make sure that I list here both, right? This is a list, like this is not a one single thing. So what I will do, I will put 4010 850. And then I will say, okay, I also want to support 4010 4010, which is invoice, right? So now I will be able to read as well as write 4010 and 850 both. So
Okay.
now I can create an interchange which may contain 850 as well as 810, two different groups there, and I can read them, that interchange, as well as I will be able to write it. What won't work is if somebody adds an 855 there, then it won't work. That particular one document will fail saying this is not supported because you have specified an explicit schema thing here. If you want to support everything, then you just remove everything and don't specify any schemas. Then literally you are supporting every schema that X12 connector supports, which may not be the right business use case, but you can do that. That's what I
Can you
mean.
just go to the bash once? Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Mhm. So star segment and request. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's in here. Batch. So let's look at it in run the application and see. Right. So what I have some flows which will help us see different data points in there. I will run this application.
So
Just
while
wait
you're
for that.
running, Manik, I have a question.
Hmm? Sure.
So can we edit this ESL files? For example, sometimes though one segment is mandatory as per X12
Mhm.
standard, but the third party doesn't follow, for example, right? They don't send it, and they said no, we are sending this way only. You have to parse that way. So are we able to make that changes into ESL file and then process that?
You can do that. So what happens is that is called schema overriding or overlaying schemas, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we consider an 850 document there and take any one example, like N1 is optional here, and we want to make it mandatory, and one should always be there for every partner that is working with me. What you can do is you can create a new ESL file in your project, and then you define that it is format X12 and it is using 850 as a parent document. It's like an inheritance. You extend from the 850 standard and you only specify what you are changing. So when X12 connector runs, what it does is it takes that parent schema of 850, overlays your schema definition on it, and makes the adjustment whatever you have defined in your schema. So if you have made N1 as a mandatory, it will make N1 mandatory for your version of 850. So in that case, you can think of like I have one ESL file added here, ESL, and then when I'm configuring my EDI thing here, I will give my own configuration here. So assuming inside my SRC main resources, I have custom custom X12, whatever the format or this thing, right? So whatever the structure basically you will create, you will have that and you will give this ESL. So connector will load this file in there. One thing probably may not work in that case, which is like if I have 850 ESL here, I may not be able to again specify a standard 850 ESL for this connector config. So I may not be able to support custom 850 as well as standard 850, depends on what type of changes you are doing. So you may have to then um, instead of creating this, you may have to create one more different config and use that config for anything that is coming out on a standard 850. So there are ways to do
Right.
it, but you should be able to do that one, like customize your schemas.
Do you have a sample of this uh, custom ESL file? How do we
Um,
extend it?
No, but should be on document. I can find the document, documentation on it. It's somewhere on the documentation.
Okay,
It
that's
has an
fine.
example too.
Okay,
It has an example too, right?
okay, right.
Okay,
Let's continue.
so our application started in here, and it does have some APIs listed for there, right? So let's see what we have. The very first we will do is 8081 and EDI, and we will send it and 4010 EDI. And I'll show you what happens with it. Okay, so let me scroll to the top in here. So this one. Before seeing this, what was 4010 EDI file? How did it look? So if I go in here and open this file, so this is one EDI file, and now if you look at this one, this has one ISAVT, which is an interchange in there. These two are the identifiers that we saw on the identity tab. So this is the sender's identity, and this is receiver's identity. When we receive a document, this thing will be validated against what you have on the connector label, right? And this is the interchange control number, like for this single file. And then if you see there is one GS segment, which is a group segment, which includes a 4010 version. So this tells, okay, in this document, we have received a 4010, and ST segment transaction set is basically your 810 per invoice. From this ST, and you have to find an corresponding SE tag segment end, right? So this whole thing is one invoice document. This whole thing defines one invoice document. So it has these IT1 that you are seeing here are basically what you call the line items. You can see
Right.
crunchy chips, nacho chips, potato chips, so many chips, right? So we have in there. So that's one, and you can have more than one invoices. So this was one document. Another ST starts from here. So there is another segment ending here. So this is another ST. It started with GS, so it is ending with GE, group ends, and it says, okay, in this group there are two items, the two STs that we saw, and X12 connector will validate and enforce, make sure that whatever GE says, that is what it actually contains, two segments in there, right? And the other control numbers are, this is the one at the group control number, and this one, ST, is actually the individual transaction control number, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Basically, how many documents you have in there, right? So this is the plain text file that we just sent to our that resource. And what that resource did was, it didn't do anything. It just passed that whole content to the X12 read, and we received that content back, right? So this is how it looks like. So it has delimiter and all this will probably won't make sense much, but the thing, yeah. So the thing that you'll look for is within that now you have a Java structure. This whole thing is a Java structure, even though it is printed as a JSON, but you get the idea, right? So you have transaction sets within that. Our document had 4010. So here is a 4010 and it had a 810 in there. So in 810, you have an array which will contain two different objects in there, right? And then you have a detail, and basically the X12 plain text structure converted into a Java object, and then you have basically everything. And what I think, if I go here and look at this guy, so this is where I was mentioning it has a data sense, right? So since I have X12 here, by data sense, the way data sense works in Studio, next component should be able to know what is the output of X12. That will become an input to this one. So on the set payload in input, we can see the structure of this payload. The payload output of that X12 is gonna be delimiters, the error objects, if any error happens, and the functional generated things in here, interchange and all these things, right? It doesn't show you transaction sets. It says as object. Why? The reason for that is we haven't defined any schema for it. The moment we define a schema, since this is none, you don't see the transaction sets. But if I define an individual schema here, like X12, 00, 4010, in 810 ESL, it will show me the structure of the 810, and that is very helpful when I am, so it is loading it. That is very helpful when I am working on oh, come on, my things restarted. So now if you see here, you see transactions 8, 8, 10, 9, 9, 7. This is helpful when I start working on the data weave part of it. So for example, if I go like down somewhere here, so this guy. So I have an X12 read here, and now I have to convert that X12 into a JSON invoice. So it definitely helps to see that whole metadata here as I keep working on the transformation, because I know within the interchange X0 there is a TA101, right? So that's helpful in there. I'm gonna go quickly and remove that so that my other things doesn't fall. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's the output structure of the read. That's where the read happens. The second one is the acknowledgement that I was referring earlier, right? How does acknowledgements look like? So I think I should have an easy one here. Oh, come on, I should have just typed it. Yeah, this is add back. I sent the same 4010 EDI, and whatever the ACK I receive, I write it down to that file. So if you see here, this is a plain text EDI file. What it is doing, maybe here it will look better to you. Yeah. So what does it say? ISA GS, and it does say we received 4010 997, and since there were no errors, this AK9, this defines the result of it. A means accepted. So whatever you sent me, we accept, and that acceptance is not the business or the order acceptance. It just means the X12 document is valid and we are accepting that document. It doesn't mean we have processed your order. It is just like, okay, the document was good, right? So that's how the acknowledgements look like. And literally what I did here is I got the read from here, and then from the transaction sets, I just extracted the functional acknowledgement generated by read operation. So we don't generate, connector generates acknowledgement for us. We just have to extract them from the payload and send it back using the write operation. Write accepts anything which is in properly X12 structure format. So that was ACK. And then FA receive ACK. This is when you send a document to someone, you might receive an acknowledgement back from them, right? So what was this thing? ACK receive. And then you have an ACK receive, you send the ACK back to them, and X12 connector will read it properly, and it will say whatever is done. Oh, okay. So this is the example of error. 008, you sent a document and it failed a validation. Why it failed that validation is this guy is saying he's a sender ISA, receiver ISA, and I may have a different identifiers configured. Identity. Oh, I don't have a receiver application code configured for it. No, it's the right. Sorry. Okay, so here I have these application codes defined for that, and it must be sending me a different one. I have two different configurations for that. So yeah, these guys, these will problem. So that will help you to control who can send you, because you don't want anybody start sending documents to you, right? Then going to the next one. So functional order we received. Now, how do you transform X12 document into something your internal one, right? So in this one, I have an receiving an 810 invoice document, and let's assume my internal system is an API which requires it to be a JSON. So what I do is I drop and transform message in there. Since since data sense is there, and if I define 810 in my schema, I will have the structure. But then I can map that X12 Java structure, because that's what X12 read outputs, right? So it will have, give me 1 second, sorry. Hey, I'm back. Sorry, I forgot to get water, and after talking a lot, it needs. Can you still see my screen? Yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, so we then transform that 810 into whatever the in API structure that you have. So I have like invoice date, invoice number, order number, invoice total, and then the items, like all the chips are now getting converted into the invoice items in here. And then once you have this one, you can send it to whatever the API that you have. So I think I have the commands in here. Right. Let's look at this guy in here. HTTP EDI to JSON. Okay, so we sent an EDI file, the same invoice, EDI invoice that we were looking at earlier, EDI file. And because of that data, it got converted into a JSON object, which has all the chips and everything in here. And then this JSON can go into whatever the internal API that you have in your organization or any other system, right? And it's not JSON, you can obviously convert it into any format. So that was in the that was the invoice. Any questions so far? We saw like read, write, acts, settings.
Manik, one question.
Hmm?
Earlier, right, when you're showing settings, you said if there is a duplicate 810, we can the interchange reject. So does MuleSoft store the interchange IDs in a object store behind the scene?
Yes, so HTML connector uses an object store, persistent object store behind the scenes. So that's I would say that duplicate validation is with that condition in place, that it is done by X12 using the persistent object store. It manages, keeps track of all those values, right? So if you have to really control how it does that, in EDI file here, we saw three things, right? Three control numbers. This one control number, then this GS control number, and this ST control number, these three things. Every time a document goes through the X12 connector, what X12 connector does is in the object store, it makes a unique key for a combination of sender ID, receiver ID, and the document type, version number. So basically, it creates a unique key so that for the same type of document, it can increment that number. So if I have received this 4010 invoice from this sender for this version and it is 810, connector will make a key so that when the next document comes in, or when I am generating a keys for it, or when the document is coming in, it knows which key to use and which number to increment. If I receive another document from the same sender, but a different group identifier, like sender department, let's say they have a retail and then they have an office stationery department. So office stationery department may have their own group identifier. So if I receive from them, the control number sequence will be different. So connector manages it. You can override those keys if you, for example, no matter who sends you a interchange from whichever partner comes, if you always want to use the same sequence, you can configure those keys at here also. So I think here. So by default, they are empty. Connector prepares those key. But for this configuration, if I say always use ABCD as a key for interchange, then no matter who sends me a document, if this no matter for whom I am generating a document, they always will get a same sequence. So if I'm sending you a document, it will get one, and if I send someone else a document, that will get two, and if I again sending it to you, you might get three. So it might seem like a disconnected, but it all depends on the use case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any more questions? Because how much time we have? Okay, maybe 5 more minutes.
Yeah, then we have a quiz thing, money.
Yes. So, and this is the part where I was saying this is a batch part, and no, not batch part. This is a write operation. So this one example is where we are going to now receive an X12 document, and not X12 document, an XML document from our, let's say, internal system is sending us an X12 document, and we have to convert that into EDI and send it to the partner, right? So we have this XML. This is same structure that we saw in read operation, the output of X12. What we do is we convert that XML into application Java into that predefined structure. Similar to the data sense, since we have dropped an X12 right here, this transform message will know what structure you have to generate. So in this output here, you will see that whole structure in place. So that way, it's easy for you to map the XML structure, or whatever the input structure you have into this Java structure, and then feed this Java object to X12 write thing. And we have a write for it. I think we have a write. Let's see what I in here. So okay, it's the same here. And enterprise outbound PO. Right. So this is how our XML PO XML looks like. This is a purchase order in XML format. We will send this and hope that it works. What happened? Our interchange receiver IDs doesn't match. Yes, obviously, because I changed the right operators. One more thing is all these identifiers are optional. If you are creating some generic application to support everybody in the world, you can just leave it open. Then it won't do that validation. It will just go through it. Yeah. So, oh no, which one I did? Not this guy. Okay, done. I think that's where the demo card says stop it. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't send the uh, order number to it. Anyways, we will just look at this part, not this. This one, write extra. So we already know how EDI looks like. So more important here is once you have EDI, you have X12, right? You can convert that into this Java object, Java structure, which is easy to work with compared to EDI file, and then feed that to write object. That was the write. Batch, this is not working yet, but this is how it should work. Like you receive an EDI file, you convert that into an EDI document. And once you have the document in there, whenever it's time to release your batch, so like here I am writing all those EDI files into an object store just for the demo purpose. And when it's time to release the batch, I was retrieving all the objects written into that object store, convert that, join all them together, and give it to the right batch. At present, it is complaining me that my input is not starting with ISA. I don't know why, even it does. So it's right out of the O1, still playing with it. But that will be the idea for it. You keep generating all your X12s, store them somewhere in database or somewhere. And if let's say 6 o'clock in the evening you have to release, at 6 o'clock you pick up all the X12 documents from database and then release them. Give it to the right batch. It should give you one big ISA file like this. So here, this is an example of an interchange where it has two groups. So if you see, this group is for 4010 version, and if I scroll down, there is another group segment which is for the 3010 version. So you can also do that. You can mix and match GS in there in a given interchange file. So you can mix document types, plus you can mix versions, provided your partner supports it. Okay, I think because that was all for the demo part 2. Any questions, or if you want to go for the quiz or questions?
Anyone has any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Madhu.
Mani, what are the challenges you faced? Like I know a lot of challenges, right, but one or two major ones.
It depends what we consider as a challenge, right? If it is a small integration, one-off integration that you have an X12 and you want to just send it, it's fine. But as you grow and as you start supporting more and more document, or as the number of transactions starts increasing, it gets difficult to track what is going through the system and what is happening with it, right? Because just troubleshooting B2B transactions just by the logs of your application may not be a good idea. You may want a proper system which tracks all your transactions, X12 incoming, X12 outgoing, even the functional ACK, that if I send you a purchase order and you are sending me functional ACK back in my system where order originated, I should be able to apply that functional order back in here, which means that functional ACK needs to go through X12 and then again get applied here. And when I'm sending something to there, So all that reconciliation of the transaction, that is all more challenging as the use case becomes bigger and bigger and bigger in there. One-off integration, just sending one or two documents, not very heavy, probably could just work through it. Makes sense.
People, any question? Then we'll move to the next phase, which is a quiz. We have 5 questions. Mani, can you go back to the presentation once?
Sure. Here. And person. Okay, there's demo. So that's any questions if you have, you can find me there, or you can ask Google. Google knows where I am. But this is the one, right? This one?
Yeah, correct. So everyone, you can go to the menti.com and join there. I'm starting the Menti presentation. You can join there. Manik, I'm sharing my screen now.
Okay, sure. I'll start.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we start, or anyone? We have 10 people. Do you want me to wait for 2 more minutes?
Hey, I need to jump on the another meeting, so yeah, probably I think we can get started. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then we'll start. So we have 5 questions, and based on the the total number of points you have at the end, we will have a 3 winners. Fastest questions will have more points, so it would be good if you can answer question very quickly. All the best to everyone. Let's start. Okay, I'll start with the first question. So first question is, which is a predominant EDI format used in the North America? Yeah, so the X12 is the answer. Okay, I'm going for the next question. We'll see the leaderboard, what we have. Okay, so Madhu is leading. Go for the next question. Second question. Which one of the following is a functional acknowledgement document? Oh, wow. Everyone was paying attention very well.
I wasn't expecting.
Oh, good.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Let's see leaderboard. Oh, it changed. Okay. Let's get ready for third question. What content type does read and write operations produce and consume? Hmm. Oh, this time it changed completely. Good, guys. Keep it up. We'll have next question, the fourth one. What control number field does X12 use? Good one. Okay. And then we have a last question. I think last question didn't come. Sorry, guys, something went wrong for the last question.
Okay. So Madhu, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Madhu. So we have a Madhu.
Wow, that's great.
Siva.
Congratulations.
So Madhu, so guys, I think this is the key. You should ask more questions, then you would get prepared yourself for the quiz.
So we have 3 winners, right?
Yeah, 3 winners.
Madhu, Shri, Shri, and
Shiva.
Siva. Congratulations all.
All right, so thanks for listening attentively.
Thank you,
And
Madhu.
guys-
If you can consider for DevOps training, it will be great.
Sorry, what is that?
Sorry. I said I'm just looking for a DevOps training, production readiness DevOps training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you guys send us your the email addresses, so then we will send you the vouchers. Okay.
So
Mani, can you go back? Can you take the control, or can you share your screen for the last presentation?
Hey, sorry, I had to drop off. I need to go another meeting. I sent out on my email ID. Please help me out.